everyone. Sorry to hold you up. A series of announcements to make this morning, and I'm joined by Lori Shore, our Chief Education Officer, and for the City of Philadelphia, Jim McGuire, who is a business person in the Philadelphia region. Everyone knows Jill Michael, President and CEO of United Way of Greater Philadelphia and Southern New Jersey. Of course, our Superintendent, Dr. William Haidt, Board Member of the SRC, Sylvia Sims, Larry Jones, the President of the Pennsylvania Coalition of Charter Schools, and Jackie Kosha, who's the Superintendent of Archdiocesan Elementary Schools. I want to thank all of you for being here this morning. Before we get started with today's announcement, let me thank all of the students and teachers and school administrators and staff for doing the job that they do each and every day, but also making sure that as we all committed, that schools would open on time and in a safe manner. We certainly, with any start of the school year, there's always a bit of nervousness for that first day, but notwithstanding some of the many, many challenges that Dr. Haidt and the SRC and the entire school district team, and certainly principals and teachers have been facing for some time, not just the past couple weeks, but for some time, they are doing a fine job on behalf of the young people of this city. Dr. Haidt and I were at a number of schools on Monday together. We were at a number of schools on Monday separately and visited some schools yesterday as well, both public and parochial schools. During the course of these visits and other talks and conversations that I've had during last school year and certainly over the summer with parents and teachers, students, business people, citizens, all have expressed significant levels of concern about the start of the school year. Certainly been a difficult few months preparing for the new school year, but I am, again, very, very proud of everyone pulling together and coming together on behalf of our children and opening schools in a successful fashion. Education, of course, is one of the most important indicators of a young person's potential for success. I believe that every child in this city, every child in this state deserves a high-quality education and positive learning experiences in a safe environment. Over the years, I have reaffirmed this commitment to education and our children time and time again. In the last 3 years, the City of Philadelphia has increased its annual funding to the school district by $155 million annually going forward. We will continue to work with the school district to find additional funding, push for a new statewide funding formula to ensure that every district and all of our children across the state receive the funding they deserve, and push for funding initiatives the city has already proposed to be passed by the General Assembly and hopefully signed by the Governor. In addition, we're asking the Pennsylvania General Assembly to approve a cigarette tax that was passed by City Council 16-0 for Philadelphia that will provide $80+ million a year in funding for education. We're asking City Council to pass the sales tax extension that will provide hundreds of millions of dollars over the next few years in education funding. And again, I'm calling on Governor Corbett to release the $45 million in state funding, as well as work in concert with the General Assembly and many of us here in the city, the region, and across the state to create a new education funding formula to properly fund education for all of Pennsylvania's children. That being said, let me focus on the specific announcement regarding our presence here today. I've said many times that we all have a role to play in supporting the next generation of Philadelphia's leaders, our children. And whether it's volunteering in our Walk Safe PHL routes, mentoring a child or a young person, or providing a summer job opportunity, all of us have a positive role to play in the lives of our children. Today, I'm announcing a new fundraising campaign called the Philadelphia Education Supplies Fund. This campaign will raise money to provide additional funds to schools to purchase supplemental classroom supplies, and whether that's paper or pens or workbooks and other educational materials, to every K-12 school in the city of Philadelphia. That means schools that are managed directly by the school district, charter schools, and Archdiocesan schools in the city can receive extra money to keep their classrooms well-stocked with school supplies. I want to note that for district schools, this will be additional discretionary money on top of the $100 allotted for each teacher to purchase classroom supplies. And I've had numerous conversations, certainly with Dr. Height and his team, and they have been going school by school to make sure that schools already have supplies in hand. But we all know, and certainly as a parent, we know that during the course of the school year there are many activities that teachers and students come up with, and we want to make sure that not only at the beginning of the school year that supplies are available, but later on in October and November and March and April and on through the rest of the school year that there is funding available to purchase needed materials. This, of course, is in fact a small but important opportunity for every Philadelphian, or people in the region for that matter, and whether you have children in school or not, this is a great opportunity to support children in the city, their schools, and the future of our great city of Philadelphia. Remember, the Philadelphia Education Supplies Fund is a fundraising challenge out to the broader community. I've heard from so many people who are interested in helping and getting involved in education for children. And there are many, many ways. And while we still need support, of course, from Harrisburg and from City Council to pass the sales tax extension or the cigarette tax or split sales tax proceeds between the city's pension fund and our schools, everyone, again, can do something. And today's announcement is an immediate opportunity for our citizens, our nonprofits, our businesses and corporations, and the philanthropic community to come together in support of education here in our city. Our goal is to raise $500,000 for the fund by October 15th. To help kick off this fundraising effort, I'm excited to announce that the City of Philadelphia will begin the fundraising and make an immediate contribution of $200,000 right now and a total of $1 million over a 5-year time period to the Philadelphia Education Supplies Fund. Our total goal is to raise $2.5 million over the next 5 years. Many of you probably remember a similar fundraising effort we started a few years ago, the Splash and Summer Fund. That was in the midst of the recession, and the city was facing serious budget constraints of our own. And to balance the budget, we knew that we had to make a variety of unpopular cuts, including a proposal that we would not be able to open all of our swimming pools in the summer of 2009, many years ago. Through a lot of hard work and the generous support of a variety of sponsors and the public, we raised enough money in the Splash and Summer Fund to keep our pools open, and they have been, every one of them, every summer since then. This is another opportunity for the public to work with the city and support our children. Our partner and the administrator of the Philadelphia Education Supplies Fund will be the United Way of Greater Philadelphia and Southern New Jersey. And I'd like to bring up our President and CEO and my friend, Jill Michaels, to make a few remarks. Jill?
Well, thank you to Mayor Nutter, to Lori, to the city, and to your team for inviting us to be part of today's announcement. We're honored to be part of this work, but more importantly, we're in this for the long haul. And we're in it for the long haul because we know, as the mayor said, that every child deserves a quality education from cradle to career. And while there's no silver bullet for any of our children, we know that a quality education is the greatest economic equalizer they will ever know. But kids are going to struggle to succeed in school if their classrooms lack the most basic essentials, pens, paper, dry erase markers, so that the teachers can really bring those lesson plans to life. There's so much that we worry about every day. when we send our kids off to school. I can attest to that as the mother of a first and third grader. But whether or not their classroom is going to run out of paper at some point shouldn't be one of them. So we're really incredibly proud to be able to partner with the mayor and the city to launch the Philadelphia Educational Supply Fund, which will not only help schools throughout the city purchase the supplies that they need right now, but as the mayor said, make sure that they have them available throughout the rest of the year. Your contribution says to parents and teachers alike that you believe that with all the other challenges that all of our kids face growing up, that you refuse to allow the lack of basic tools to be one of them. So on behalf of the tens of thousands of children and educators all across our region who may never get the chance to thank you themselves, I thank you for whatever you can give in whatever way you can give it. At United Way, we see firsthand every single day the impact we can make when we work together, and we're really proud to be your partner for driving the kind of measurable, lasting impact that none of us can achieve alone. Thank you.
Jill, thank you again, and I want to say thank you for the continued partnership, the great work that United Way did for us a number of years back with the Splash and Summer Fund, and certainly we expect the same kind of partnership and great results. This, of course, is another shining example here in Philadelphia of what public-private partnerships can do and what they can mean. And with that, we have another speaker and another good friend, James McGuire Sr., who is the co-founder of the McGuire Foundation. I'm excited to announce, and I'm going to introduce Jim, and he can tell you exactly what they're going to do. But the McGuire Foundation, again, will be one of the initial contributors to this fund. Jim is well known and well respected in the business community here, the region, across the state, and across the country. And so it's my great pleasure to introduce James McGuire.
Thank you, Mayor. The mayor is very forceful in his ideas, and you can see that twisting my arm really got my attention. I'm only kidding. The McGuire Foundation is committed to education here in the Delaware Valley. All our resources go into education in the grade schools, high schools, and colleges in the Delaware Valley. And we're happy today to be able to commit $100,000 to this program because we believe in the education of children and we believe in this idea. So we're very pleased that the mayor has asked us to participate. Thank you.
Man of few words, but a very strong commitment. So let me thank James McGuire and the McGuire Foundation for their contribution, and their decision to so immediately support this effort is quite incredible. One last announcement. In addition to the McGuire Foundation, I'm pleased to announce that John and Dr. Janet Haas have also stepped up in a remarkable way. They've agreed to match donations up to $30,000 each year for the next 5 years as well to the Philadelphia Education Supplies Fund. They are depending on the people and the businesses and the philanthropic communities of the city to help our students and our schools. They personally could not be here today, but asked me to make sure that I announced their very large and heartfelt contribution. I want to ask Dr. Haidt and Mr. Jones and Ms. Cochet to say a few words, and then I'll be glad to take any questions from the news media. Dr. Haidt?
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and want to first begin by thanking the mayor, Mayor Nutter, and his administration for continuing to support the public education and that process for all of the children of Philadelphia. I want to thank Dr. Shore for her work, her tremendous work. Commissioner Sims, who's here, she and I were in school earlier this morning, actually walking in and out of classrooms. Also want to take an opportunity to thank the United Way for supporting mechanisms to provide funding directly for the purpose of educating the children, and McGuire Foundation for your generosity, especially with providing the means to get supplies to our teachers and to our classrooms. So on behalf of all of the children that we educate in the School District of Philadelphia, all of the members, staff members who are working, all of the teachers and principals who are working in our schools, the School Reform Commission, and those children's families. Thank you for providing this resource for many of our educators. Thanks again.
I'd like to say thank you to Mayor Nutter, to everyone who has come together in this work of putting this project together. I'd like to thank the United Way for your continued support of education in the city of Philadelphia, of course, the McGuire Foundation. And I'd like to thank everyone specifically who's out there right now who understands that in schools across the city, whether they be charter, diocesan, traditional public, that the students and teachers all want to do the same thing. Students want to learn, teachers want to teach. And one last thing to worry about means that teachers will have one more moment to share with students. So on behalf of the teachers that I work with every day and all teachers and students and families, thank you very much. We look forward to continued support and working together.
On behalf of the Office of Catholic Education, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Nutter, for your generosity and your support of students and education, making education and safety and student happiness a priority. I'd like to thank the generosity of the United Way and our donors, the McGuire Foundation, and John and Dr. Janet Haas for their contributions. This fund will mean so much, not only to our parents and our students, but to our principals and teachers. Speaking not only as a superintendent, but as a mother and a former third grade teacher, I know how much everyone has to contribute to get the school year off to a good start, and this will be much appreciated by everyone. Thank you so much.
You may be wondering, because I was wondering. So the way to make a contribution, let me just get this out. It's the website is unitedforimpact.org/teacher supplies. Let me give that to you one more time. unitedforimpact.org/teacher supplies. And with that, I'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have about this announcement.
Because of the school's budget crisis, the lack of equipment and supplies in the classroom that the teachers are having to put out money for themselves, either one. What have you noticed, Dr.
Sure.
about that situation?
I'll take a little bit of it and certainly turn to Dr. Height. I can tell you, Vernon, that in good times and bad, in my now 20 years of elective office, and especially when I was a district council person and spent a lot of time in the schools in the district that I represented, there's always been concern about the amount of supplies, even when there was no budget deficit and when we were not in an economic crisis. There's always a need for more materials, and that's just something that happens in the course of the year. And so schools do start with some amount of supplies and materials, but there's a lot of activity in the course of a school year. And as I said, when we were not in economic crisis, I would hear from teachers and parents, administrators and others that especially toward the tail end of the school year, you just start to run out of those kinds of materials. You do more events, you do more experiments, you do more activities in the course of the year than you may have anticipated at the start. So it's, from my perspective, it's a combination of, yes, we are in a budget crisis. There are supplies in our schools right now. There will be a need later on. But also, there's been, quite honestly, an outcry from many, people like Jim McGuire, people like John and Dr. Janet Haas, and just people that I've met with who want to do something, who want to help, who want to give their support. And I think creating a sustainable fund, creating a mindset that, school's getting ready to start, or it's, mid-year or something like that, let me send my $25 in, let me send $50 in, because I can do my part. I don't have kids in school, I do have kids in school, whatever the case may be, but people just want to be able to do something. This is very tangible and needed across the system.
You'll take a $25 contribution from private citizens.
I take a $5 contribution. I mean, you know, I don't have pride that way. So, you know, everyone can do something. And I will tell you, and then have Dr. Height come up, I will never forget, in the midst of our city crisis problems, a lady sent me a letter saying, I know that you're having troubles in the city with your budget, and literally sent me $5 for the city of Philadelphia. I, of course, immediately turned that over to Rob DeBow. People want to help, and I think we should give them that opportunity. And certainly with the amount of focus and attention on the issue of education, there are a number of things that can be done. There are votes to be taken, there's policies to be changed, there are all these high-level things. But I think we can never forget that right on the ground, in classrooms, education takes place, and it's a unique relationship between a teacher and a student, and making sure that they don't have to worry about those things and can stay focused on the teaching part is just one more thing that all of us can do. So, okay.
Sure. Great. Just not much to add, Vernon, other than a couple of points. Number one, when I was a teacher, when I was a principal, when I was a district administrator, even in the best times, there were challenges to make sure that there was enough supplies in every school. And so the supplies based on what teachers actually needed in order to do this work. The second thing was, this past Saturday, I was visiting with a teacher who was in the first grade class for the first time. That teacher had already been to Home Depot, some Office Max, and other stores, and had already exhausted the $100 we provide as a district to all teachers for supplies. And so for that teacher and for many others like her, this provides a means to support them as they begin to try to support their students in their classrooms. And so even in the best times, we tend to struggle with the type of consumable materials that are needed in classrooms. And to the point, even with the challenges that we've had as a school district, we still maintain that $100 per teacher for instructional supplies. So this is even in addition to that, which I think would be a welcomed announcement for many of our educators.
If you reach your $500,000 goal there, how much does that break down to for every classroom in the city?
I have no idea. I mean, it's the most straightforward answer. I think, Tommy, if, and I do expect that we'll reach our goal, as Dr. Height said, that's on top of what's already given. And last I checked, and you know, I'm just a kid from West Philly, but $500,000 is a whole lot of money. Some schools may need a little more, some schools may need less, some may not even end up applying. But the resource is there. That's a goal. Obviously, if we exceed it, you know, all the better. But let's at least get started down that path and see what the requests are, what the needs are that are really out there. And we won't really know until folks have the opportunity to make that application. So.
Mayor, could you go a little more detail into how people can access the fund, when it will start being distributed, and who's going to make the decision as to who gets, you know, which classrooms get it and how much and all that?
Well, the first thing I can tell you is that I will have nothing to do with that whatsoever. So if you need school supplies, you should probably not call me. I won't be making those kinds of decisions. Those are operational decisions that, first and foremost, all of that will be worked out between and among the United Way, the school district, the charter school community, and, of course, the Archdiocese as well. You know, there will be accountability built into that. You want to know who's applied for what and who actually received what and what school did it go to. And so it will certainly depend on our principals or administrators, again, on the ground to have that kind of documentation and accountability. But all of those details will soon be announced.
Mayor, where does the money from the city come from, and then does that money go into a separate fund, and who's managing the funds with the United Way?
The city money is from the general fund, and it's going to be a contribution to United Way. At that point, United Way will then manage those dollars in conjunction with, you know, McGuire Foundation or the Haas's or anyone else who contributes. But it'll be a direct contribution to United Way, and then they'll manage the dollars from there. So for us, it's just a direct contribution. Anything else?
Can I ask, on a related note, since you referenced
Related or unrelated?
related, the effort
I wouldn't suggest that. I don't actually know what, as you know, Mike, you know what I'm probably going to say. I'm not going to make any predictions about what may or may not happen, whether it's tomorrow or next week, on a particular piece of legislation. Why don't we just wait until we get there? But I would strongly say that we do need to pass the sales tax extension, and I'm already on record saying that it certainly will continue to push for the General Assembly to pass the cigarette tax and amend the sales tax for the split. They're not back until the 23rd, and I certainly don't know whether they will do either of those things. But passing the sales tax at the moment in any form that is different than what was authorized by the General Assembly will not be effective. We would not have access to those dollars if there is a difference between what was legislated in Harrisburg and what might be approved here in Philadelphia. There is certainly the option to pass it the way it was approved and incorporate, as we often do, a provision that if the General Assembly subsequently makes a change in how they originally passed the sales tax, then that change would automatically go into effect if you put that particular provision in a piece of legislation. But at the moment, passing anything that is different than what the General Assembly has authorized and the governor signed will not go into effect, and the school district would not have access to the $120 million that is sitting now in the state tax code. Well, one, you don't know that. Two, I have not talked about that. And three, I won't. City council, the members are elected independently. They'll have to make these kinds of decisions for themselves, but hopefully, again, the decision-making will be done in the context of what's in the best interest of school children and the financial stability of the school district. So let's not try to spend a lot of time speculating about tomorrow. Why don't we just wait until tomorrow gets here and we'll see what happens. Last question, because there's a...
Are you going to transmit a bill on borrowing? And secondly, borrowing $50 million, that is. And secondly, this may be for Dr. Height, does the school district have a deadline when it needs that $50 million? So in other words, how much time do you and council have to work out your differences about supply of the
Well, I'll take the second part of that. I think we've said before that we actually have a few months to deal with the $50 million issue. And what was the first part of your question?
Are you transmitting the...
I'm not anticipating that we're transmitting that particular piece of legislation tomorrow, and you should not read anything into that.
Mayor, can you give us an update on future contract negotiations?
I'm sorry.
Can you give us an update on future contract negotiations?
You'd probably do better getting that from the person who's actually in those negotiations. And so that'll be the last question. There's a 9/11 related event that I have to get ready to go to. But Dr. Hyde?
Update is the same as yesterday's update. We're still in negotiations. We're still meeting regularly. Those meetings are lasting a lot longer, and whatever that means. And we are both committed, all sides are committed to actually resolving this as quickly as possible. But those negotiations are still ongoing.
Thanks everyone.